will be showing. Oh yeah. Imagine if
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. We welcome you to Theology on Tap, Durham. We are so excited to have some of you here in person with us, as well as some joining online. My name is Conchita, and I am one of the campus ministers for the Oshawa Catholic Chaplaincy. I'm also joined by my colleague Shannon, and we will be your present for the evening. I am also joined by my other colleague Krista, who is going to be my co-host for the evening. So in a few moments, we'll be introducing our speaker, but in the meantime, if you haven't already done so, please grab a beverage and a snack from there, and also have some conversation with the people sitting at your table. Take a moment to introduce yourself, catch up on your day, and we will begin very shortly. Thank you.
That's coming later.
We are back. Once again, we are so excited for this season of Theology on Tap, our first Theology on Tap of the year. Show of hands if this is your first Theology on Tap event. Ooh, nice to meet you, and I'm sure that some of the new people are also joining online at this time. That's awesome. So here's a quick breakdown of this evening's event. The talk will begin in just a moment, and then after that, there will be a short discussion, which you will be having in your discussion groups. Following that, there will be a short break for you to grab some more snacks, followed by a Q&A period with our guest speaker. And all of those questions for those in person and online can be asked via slido.com. So if you visit slido.com and you type in TOTO or TOT Durham, you will be sent to our particular forum where you can ask questions anonymously, and you can also take a look at other people's questions as well. And if there's a question you really like that's on your heart that you would like to also ask, but someone's already asked it, you can hit the like button, and then it gets popped up to the top to make sure it really gets to our guest speaker of the night. So without further ado, I would be so happy to announce that our guest speaker for tonight is our very own Parish Priest of St. Joseph the Worker Parish, Father Victor Amole. And Father Victor, let's give a big round of applause to Father Victor before I tell you more about him. So Father Victor Amole is from Ibadan. Is that how I say it? Ibadan, a southwestern city of Nigeria. He was ordained a priest in 2003 and was Archdiocesan Secretary for 7 years. Father Victor studied moral theology in the Accademia Alfonsiana in Rome. Those are all fancy words, where he got his PhD in 2013. Father Victor is a member of the Society for the Scientific Study of Religion, also known as SSSR. His publications include Light Unto My Path, 40 Biblical Reflections, and Words of the Fathers, Themes of Patronistic Ecclesiastical Writings in the Office of Readings. Father Victor enjoys blogging, lawn tennis, golf, and music. He is pastor to St. Joseph the Worker Parish in Oshawa and chaplain of the Oshawa Catholic Chaplaincy. So, can I please hear it for Father Victor Amole?
Thank you so much, Conchita. And it's nice to be here amongst friends and to celebrate this life with our discussion, the theology on tap. I say celebrated because we know that it's been a lot. We've not had this for quite some while. So it's beautiful to be back, even though I know, we'll have had even much more, a lot more people. But I understand we have a lot of people online, so that's okay. It's beautiful. It's also good to know that we're able to have this starting right from here. I mean, I'm glad to do this opening up, to be the first one to give the talk. Well, I guess we'll use that as some sort of a guinea pig, and we'll go from there. So today we're having this discussion in the world, not of the world, living as a young Catholic in today's culture. I wonder if sometimes you've had some embarrassing moments in which you have what I call those burning questions. When you are asked questions about your faith and you are saying something like, "Do not ask me," and you slither down in your seats and say, "No, not me," right? When you get embarrassed because of this, wanting to, when people want to know what you think genuinely about this situation, right? And that is very, it touches on the issue we have today because we are Christians, baptized, and called by Christ. All those beautiful things that we say in theology, theology on tap, right? But we are also people who are living in the world. We are embodied spirits. We are not like angels who are living spiritual beings in heaven and so beautiful life, everything is okay. You are here. You eat pizza. Some of us are taking chips here. Guys, you should come. Having chips and all. Beautiful. We are embodied people. So sometimes we find ourselves in those sort of embarrassing situations. There's a story about a man who got to heaven, and Saint Gabriel was giving him a tour around heaven, and they see all the beautiful places and all. And then he gets to this particularly very beautiful place, lush lawns and, great stuff. Beautiful music, sonorous, Gloria in Chelsea's Dale, and all those stuff. And he's wondering, this is just marvelous. I've not seen this since I came here. And Angel Gabriel says, yeah, but take it easy. Those are Catholics. They think they are the only ones here. Take it easy. Don't make noise. When I read or got that joke for the first time, it was while I was much younger. We just laughed at it, and that's it. But as I became mature, as I grew up, and particularly in the seminary days, I wondered at that joke. It has stayed with me for a long while, and I'm glad I'm able to share it today, because it does indicate the sort of sometimes embarrassing situations you find yourself as Catholics, right? It indicates how Catholics are seen as some different people, you might say, right? And you question yourself too, what is it about us? Why is it that, for instance, when social issues happen, when things happen in our world, and I'm not talking about maybe like those things in which maybe the church has made some mistakes, those have happened too. I'm talking about natural social things. People want to listen. What has the Pope got to say? What has the church got to say? What are you Catholics saying? What are you doing about it? It means there is something there about the Christian, about the Catholic, who is meant to be some sort of beacon, some source of light in this place. Embodied spirits, people who are flesh but have their orientation towards heaven. We have our domicile here, we are living here, but our focus is heaven. Let's contextualize this a little bit. So when you think about education, for instance, the church has been very helpful. The church has been a big agent of, education right from the very beginning. I mean, the very best of scientists, maybe people do not know, were even priests right from the beginning, right? We have seen that there is a lot of rapid change coming in the landscape in education. There are a lot of things that have, and I'm not just talking about some of these mistakes that have been made. For instance, we're talking today in another talk about the indigenous people, right? Some mistakes have been made in the past. It's not so much about, whether the church was the one responsible or not. It's that there are some things that shouldn't have been the case, right? You could say the oversight should have been better because much more is expected of the church, right? So the oversight should be better. That's what we can all agree to. But apart from that too, you see some things changing in our world. The landscape is fast changing that people will ask, is that a Catholic school? What is happening, right? You know this very well. And so you find yourself in that mesh in which you are questioning yourself. And when people question you, you're like, you're not really sure what to say in that sort of situation, right? Because we're in a situation in which we are called to be Christians who are human, who are in the world, but not of the world. So, of whom some standards are expected, right? To be a Christian is to be human, yes. The Word was made flesh. Jesus became man. I used to say, I know I've preached here once, and I said, well, God could easily have saved us without having to become a man. He decided to save us through the human flesh. It became like us. The Word became flesh. But this Word who became flesh has called us to rise from the world. And he is the one actually that speaks about they are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. This is where the topic of tonight is coming from. Father, my choice of them has drawn them out of the world. Consecrate them in the truth, right? So you find this very delicate balance playing out in which God has become man. He comes to save us, yet he calls us out of this world. He becomes a man to live in our dwelling like us. He eats with us. I just started watching The Chosen. I'm not sure how many of us have seen it. People have always been on, Father, watch The Chosen forever. I don't know when it even came out, but this week I just said, what is it about? I'm blown away. That is a real representation of the fact that the Word became flesh. He lived within the presence, within the reality of the human person. He ate fish with people, right? But he says, they are not of the world. You are not of the world, right? And St. Paul will amplify that and say, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good, acceptable, and perfect. Again, another verse in John, the Gospel of John says, if the world hates you, you know that it has hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world would love you as its own. But because you are not of the world, I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. So that all these scriptural citations bring back the original question: how do we reconcile me being in this world and yet not of the world? Talking about contextualization again, let's give a further example. Say, for instance, you have a friend, and this is really the thing. We always have friends, right? You have a friend who is a man, but who says to you, so I'm a man, and, well, I'm living with another man. We are looking forward to getting married. You are a Catholic, and you are a good friend to this friend. In fact, sometimes you are not just a friend, you are a family member of this person. Do you see how the sort of situation, you might call it, that you find yourself in that sort of instance, in which you are in the world? This is my brother, this is my friend, I love him, we have beers together, we enjoy ourselves, but I am not of the world. The church teaches me the word of God that I've received, the mandate of Christ that calls me in baptism, lets me know that this is not what my faith dictates. You see how heavy this sort of topic is. Well, as you guys have brought it up, it's a heavy topic. It highlights the facts of the situation Christians find themselves. We find ourselves in this sort of dilemma, right? Perhaps it might not be as deep as that sometimes. Think about situations, for instance, as simple as your good friends who are very nice to you and with whom you have good company are asking you to, let's go get drunk. Let's just go party and get drunk, and that's it. Well, you know that actions always have consequences. It would be beautiful just to get drunk and then we walk out like stoics and say, yeah, that's it. No, it doesn't end that way. Oftentimes, we misbehave. Things just happen. So you know that when the scripture or the faith teaches us sobriety, keeping calm, not being drunk, is one of the virtues that is expected of a Christian, it has a meaning. So when you get drunk, but the point I'm making is, so when the friends tell you, let's go get drunk, so you find yourself in that sort of situation. What do I don't want to go, but these are my friends. I want to be with them. We want to have a good time. Or issues which plague young ones, because the title actually is You Are in the World but Not of the World, how a young person is meant to, live in this world, right? Live his faith in this world. When the young person finds himself in that situation in which the girl, maybe, or sometimes it could happen, even the boy, is being pressurized for premarital sex. This is the reality of the question here, of the topic here. That, okay, my faith calls me to this, and there is a good backing to it. If we go through that, which is another talk for another day, why I should not engage in that, but I love this person, right? And the pressure comes. Or you have issues like simple things like choice of movies. You want to have one that is really well rated. Your friends are saying, oh, what's that? Yeah, we're not watching cartoon, we're not, right? You want to watch something, really. So I hope I've been able to give you a good background or situate the question well, for you to know that it's something really, worth looking into. During one of our meetings, we had this picture, which is actually beautiful. It was painted by two elementary school students. So the Durham Catholic District School Board presented these, and I was really captivated, and I knew I was going to use this someday. And so it was meant to be a competition, so they asked them to do some depiction of their faith. And so this particular picture is a merger of two pictures. One is by a grade 8 student, and the other one is by one of the lower grade students. And so one drew the people hand in hand. You could see the diversity, one who is handicapped, one who is smiling. I hope you can see, I do see, one who is like crying. And then the difference is in color, as we used to call it, the diversity of life, right? And then another person drew that tree, and so they merged it together. The tree of life, the need for respect for nature, talking about indigenous people, the heart of Christ, the sacred heart, burning with love, all these things coming together. Now, it makes a lot of relevance to this question, because this stands for the diverse situations in which we find ourselves, the world in which we are. It's diverse people with their stories, with their differences. And yet, these diverse people who are being called by Christ through his sacred heart to an abundance of love, to purity, And then, of course, summarized by, if one member suffers, all suffer. If one member is honored, all are honored. We are in this situation together, in this journey together. Oh, well. So enough of the contextualization and situation. What do we do? How do we face, or rather practically, how do we be in this world and not be of this world? I suggest what you call our hermeneutic. Hermeneutic is a word talking about theology on tap, which means the study of the methodological principles of interpretation. It appeals to Bible most of the time, but it could also mean like a method of or principle of interpretation of things. What method do we use in analyzing stuff? In this case, the hermeneutic I'm suggesting is this man here. I guess all of us know who this man is, right? If I remove the skull cap, will you still know him? Yeah, you probably will. Well, a good number of us know him. His papacy spanned many years, so much so that some of us will even consider him as the Pope. Like those who were born, say, in the 60s will consider him definitely as the Pope they knew because his papacy was from 1978 to 2005. Those who are even younger will still say, oh, wow, they still know him. They've heard so much about him. Well, the thing is that, well, this was towards his very end, but we also had a man who was very young who started the World Youth Celebration, a man who was key, a pope who was very used to the young ones, university students, and finally, at the end of his life, a man indeed, as that picture depicted, I love that cross, a man who really suffered. He was old, he was suffering, he was dying, but he stood the ground. He died suffering, right? Why I'm suggesting him as an hermeneutic is because I think he represents us, a good number of, the human persons, all of us who are Christians who are in this world. He carried his cross. He gives us what we call witness. He was a witness. And Joachim Navarro Valls, who was who was controlling the Holy See press, the Vatican press, during the pontificate of John Paul II, would say many people do not really they know John Paul II as a pope. They didn't know he was actually really, really very human. This man was a communicator who spoke some 6 languages: Portuguese, French, Latin, Italian, his own Polish, right? He was an artist. He did plays while he was in school. He was a full person. He was a man, a human person. Well, why are we talking about this man here, and why are we taking him as some hermeneutic to help us understand how we can be in this world and not be of this world? Well, Pope John Paul II was very fond of this word enculturation. That's ironic because today we were in a talk that was talking about enculturation, and this you can be sure that it is not plagiarized. This work had been ready for some 2-3 days now, right? And I was just blown away when that talk was going on today, because this is what I meant to present to us as what John Paul II is saying to us. We must be ready to situate culture in faith. Faith must become culture. Faith that does not become culture is not wholly embraced, fully thought, or faithfully lived. And then some other time when he was talking to some students at the Bologna University, would say the church needs the university, so that the faith can be incarnated and become a lived culture. Incarnated means it can be situated, it can become living and become a lived culture. That is very important, because this man, who, as we said, lived life to the full, traveled to over 100 countries, more than all his predecessors before, it says, and who encountered young people, who was very there for the church, set up in 1982 what he calls the Pontifical Council for Culture, because he realized how much it is important for culture to be like the cynosure, the attention of the faith. Our faith cannot just be like a mixture of oil and water, in which oil will always be there for those who cook very well. These days I'm learning to do that too. And oil is there and water is there separated. No, the faith must mix together. So John Paul II was of the fact culture has to be looked into very well. If we are to be successful, we cannot just be in the world and say, okay, I'm in the world, but I'm not of the world, and so that's it. No, we must inculturate, he would say. We must get our acts together and get the faith to become culture, right? The question is, how do we do that? And that is the big thing. Well, I propose here 3 parameters arising from this hermeneutic. I propose, for instance, first of all, that we must encounter the culture and not the other way around. Now, don't get it wrong. It doesn't mean that the culture will not, in some way, also benefit the faith. Absolutely, it must. In fact, it's part of what John Paul II also proposes. There are elements in our culture that are very important that we must bring in and make better. Like, for instance, where I come from, the element of dance, and the people want to show their faith in that way. You will hardly see them just come like this. No, they don't do that, right? But cultures differ. But then what this one is saying is that we must not do that to the extent in which the faith becomes so enculturated that it takes over the culture. This is where the problem is. That we are in the world, yet we are not of this world. Katie Howard tells a story about the gift of a blow-up raft from his grandparents to her kids, and it was all good. They were on water. It was beautiful. They went out several times, but after some few times, they began to notice there were holes coming onto there were holes in the raft, and water was beginning to seep in. And she used this analogy to show how we are in the raft. We are meant to be in the water and keep the water out and steer ourselves in this water. But when there is a hole, what happens? Well, water seeps in. It takes over, and we become part of that water. We don't want that to happen. The same thing with encountering the culture, therefore. It must be an encounter in which we let the good of the faith pollinate the culture. Yes, get some good part of the culture to also be used in the faith, as I mentioned, dancing, for instance. Yes, but for the culture to always be purified by the faith. This is very important. And I'll cite to you again one thing. For instance, from where I come from, the Catholic faith came to Nigeria towards the 1800s, at least the initial contact, right? About that time and much later, there was this, unfortunate way of regarding people who are albinos. Do you know who an albino is? You do not really have that reality as such here, right? Yeah, I'll find a problem knowing who an albino is anyway. Here, but back home, that is a big problem because you just see that difference. And who is it? What is it? So they were considered as subpar. People were, which is terrible. The faith came in and pollinated that culture, which, by the way, is a good culture in its own, in its entirety, but it has its own problems. Pollinated it and purified it of such stigma, like considering an albino as being subpar. No, it's just a pigment of the skin. That's what I mean by the faith encountering culture and making the best of it. And this is what John Paul II is presenting to us. We are those people who are baptized in Christ, who encounter different cultures, and who should not make the water get into the raft so much so that it is overtaken by water, but rather we let our faith pollinate the culture. Okay, do not lower your bar will be the second suggestion I'll have. Well, I'll cite here the example of St. Paul. He was in a city called Areopagus. I always love that name, not because it's tongue twisting, but because there was something great that happened in that city. St. Paul had gone to that city where the people were very religious. They were worshiping all sorts of gods, and he could see the statues of all sorts of gods. This is St. Paul himself who had been converted. You imagine the crisis he must have gone through. How do I begin to minister to these people? But he noticed that they had a lot of statues. Now they had one who was dedicated and really standing out. And they say, as an inscription on that statue, dedicated to an unknown God. Ooh, St. Paul says, yeah, that is it. St. Paul says to them, this statue, this one that you are saying dedicated to an unknown God, it is that same God that I've come to preach to you. I'm giving that story from the scriptures because it tells us, the sort of difficulty we find ourselves too when you have to practice the Catholic faith. And as I said at the beginning, you ask all those questions and you are trying to slither down and not wanting to be part of this. St. Paul was able not to lower the bar and say, oh no, I'm not going to be part of that. he encountered it and then made I'm trying to look for a word. He made the word is not coming, but he made a good use of that situation, right? It was innovative. He made a good use of that situation, knowing that indeed these people are having their ignorance. They do not really see fully, but God lives in them too. So he says to them, the God I've come to preach to you is that one whom you do not know, that unknown God, right? So rather than lower our bar, I think we should get innovative and be able to encounter the culture. You are university students. You cannot say, oh yeah, well, because we are there anyway, so we just flow with it and that's it. No, to get innovative, to see how we can make this the faith much more appreciated even in this situation, right? And you know the many ways in which this is the case, right? Where we need to soar rather than work on the ground. There's a story about the chicken, about the eagle who gave birth to its young ones. One of them fell onto the ground. It happened, fortunately or unfortunately, to our falling into a place where the mother hen was just hatching, and so it mixed with the hens on the ground, and it started behaving like the hen. Until someday, an eagle flying by said, "Oh no, it looks something like eagle." Came down and said, "You are an eagle?" Says, "No, no way. These are my brothers and sisters. I'm just a chicken." No, I'm going to teach you. You can fly. No, this is not how things are. And made the eagle to fly. And then the eagle realized, what? Really? This can happen? Right? We are not called, therefore, to no insult meant for the chicken, please. We are not called to be like the chicken and stay there. We are called to fly, so that the situations in which sometimes we find ourselves, crawling, and I'm talking about all of us, is when we encounter the world where we live, but to which or from which we are meant to rise. So those encounters or those situations are situations like, for instance, pornography, which has inundated the world right now. It's a situation. And then masturbation, malice, gossiping, lying, anger, abortion. The Holy Father was just speaking on his trip back from Slovakia and Hungary, attesting to that situation of abortion. But of course, always in love, saying the fact that, our sisters or our brothers who go through this situation find themselves in this situation sometimes, but it doesn't mean that this is right. This is what the gospel says. This is the truth about it. That is engaging the world. I find Pope Francis always doing that anyway. I think he's very good at that. Not lowering the bar, engaging in a way that is compassionate, but that is truthful, right? This is what we're called to, right? And then the third final one that I will suggest as the final point is, do not run away. It's very easy to run away. Yes, oh gosh, I'm not just going to be part of it. And when I say this, I'm not saying to say I'll just be a bad person. No, you guys are great. You're great, right? We're all struggling. You're great. But I will not be part of that discussion. Like in the campus, I will not even show up. I don't want to be part of it. I'll just live my good life, come to church, everything is okay, live my life. No. We are called to be witnesses. We cannot run away from the world. We are in the world. We're in the same situation together. We're in the same situation with those your brothers and sisters who are having those situations. In fact, you're having such situations with them too. We are all having that situation. So we cannot risk abandoning the journey. Bishop Barron recently, he promotes books, different books on his Word on Fire organization. And recently he promoted a book about the prophet of abandonment, the book on the prophet Jonah, who abandoned the ship, who didn't want to do anything God wanted. Of course, he still had to do it anyway. But that sometimes is what we want to do too. We want to run away. I want to be part of this. Talking about my personal self too, if I could. When I became a priest, initially, One of the places maybe I wouldn't have loved to work was to work in the chancery, the bishop's secretary, archdiocesan secretary, carry all the problems of the archdiocese on your head, including that of the bishop too. And I didn't want that. Well, guess what? That was where I was posted. And I struggled with that for more than a year. Struggle. But the truth is that those years became for me the foundation with which, okay, I could now, struggle with bigger realities and bigger struggles, bigger troubles, right? And that is the truth about it. So it's not about running away or staying in our own cocoon, which evades the problem. No, but our baptism calls us to witnessing even with those our brothers and sisters who themselves are in the world, but they are not of the world. Okay, so the next, I wonder how many minutes I have left. I haven't spoken about the how, what we expected to, or what I propose that we do in order to, face this question of being in the world and not of the world. I wish to propose also some specific areas by which or with which we can do this, because all these have been just maybe a little bit idealistic. What are the nitty-gritty in the areas of our lives as students, in the campuses, for instance? We're living there together, Father. In what areas? How do we get to do this? Well, I wonder what you will think is the first one I'll suggest or propose. What will you think? You will have many answers in your mind, I'm sure, but yeah, human comradeship. It is probably the least that will have been in your thought. You'll have been thinking about coming with some sort of, but human comradeship is a big area for the church, for life. Human comradeship, difficult as it is, fraught with all sorts of troubles, it is the best area to start with. Because that is the area in which you find yourselves already. You have friends. Hopefully you don't have enemies. You have, you meet with people. You have course mates. You have roommates. So comradeship, which attests to them, which gives them witness already, is our whole world for them. The example that also comes to mind is ourselves here. I know there are a lot of our guys, our students online. Hi. The example of them comes to mind because when we have this social get-together, the barbecue and the rest of them, the fact is that, yeah, we have a good number of friends who are not Catholics, but who love to be here. They hang out with us. And I think I was mentioning to some of the campus minister, I was talking with Shannon once, I think, and I mentioned the fact that is a good witness. This is a place to begin. It doesn't matter. And we all know this is the truth. Because, okay, say for instance, I spoke with one of the boys who just arrived from India the other day, and they said, oh, Father, I was actually, we're talking together, and he says, oh, Father, I'm not a Catholic, It doesn't matter. I said, but yeah, it doesn't matter, Father, because I really love what we do here. I went to Catholic school, and it's just beautiful. So that resonates in me again to say, the place to begin with is not these high places where we think, okay, it's just those who are in the church. No, the level of human comradeship, the level of humanity. Those places where we played lawn tennis with Louise recently on some 3 days ago or so. Those places where you guys play soccer. Those places where you play chess. Those places where you hang out together and have pizza. Human comradeship. This is where we witness. This is the place to begin. And as a matter of fact, the document of the church in the modern world, it's called Gaudium et Spes. Gaudium et Spes, by the way, since today is, this is Theology on Tap, let's add a little bit of theology too. Gaudium et Spes, meaning joys and hopes, is so named because the documents of the church are named with almost always the first few words of that document. You can imagine how many documents the church has. So many. So to make it easy, the document is always named with the first two words. So in this case, joys and hopes. The joys and hopes, Gaudium et Spes, the griefs and the anxieties of the men of this age are the joys and hopes, the griefs and anxieties of the followers of Christ. The same troubles you go through, the same hopes, the same joys that you share are the same things those other guys who are living with you go through. This is why the area of human comradeship cannot be taken for granted. Think of the example of Jesus again when he begins his ministry of the chosen. Beautiful. He calls to himself friends. Those 12, that's what the scripture says. He called them friends to come and stay with him. And it's amazing how he called them from different backgrounds, the worst backgrounds you could ever think of. Right now in my head, I'm thinking about poor Matthew. Some sort of, I think that guy is playing that role very well. He's not only morally bankrupt because he's cheating his people and all that, he himself has some trouble within himself, always walking some way. And so these are the people that Jesus called to become friends, human comradeship, with which Jesus launches into this issue. Yeah, you guys, you're in the world. Yeah, but you are not of the world. I will make you fishers of men. Okay, human comradeship is good. But Pope Francis reminds us, and many popes before him actually, it's amazing. You would think social media and things that have to do with media is just a recent thing. No, many popes have written about media. The church has been very instructive on the issues of media. Pope Francis, however, says in the Christus Vivit, for which I thank Keith who recommended it, that we should also be in, actual physical society is good for us to practice human comradeship, but the digital world is a very big one for us now, and we know that. This is the world in which you live. And I quote this: the web and social networks have created a new way to communicate and bond. They are a public square where the young spend much of their time and meet one another easily, even though not all have equal access to it, particularly in some regions of the world. They provide an extraordinary opportunity for dialogue, encounter, and exchange between persons, as well as access to information and knowledge. Moreover, the digital world is one of social and political engagement and active citizenship, and it can facilitate the circulation of independent information, providing effective protection for the most vulnerable and publicizing already violations of their rights. In many countries, the internet and social networks already represent a firmly established forum for reaching and involving young people, not least in pastoral initiatives and activities. So this speaks about us, young people. It means those social networks, and thank God we're putting those to use, Instagram, Facebook, and all, they are very big means these days for this human comradeship. All right. The second point is specific area is individual vocations. Now, vocations usually we'll be thinking about the vocations to the priesthood. Thank God for Matthew. God has called him, and we pray the Lord to support him, and which is beautiful. But we know that vocation is much more than that. It's much more than the call to the priesthood, which is beautiful. The call to sisterhood, great. Religious life, great. We have other calls in vocation, like consecrated single, for instance. It is often not spoken about when a young person says, this is what I want to be, consecrate myself to God in a single life. But it's important to mention things like that. And of course, most importantly for me and for the church, the married life. Because when we are consecrated, when we are ordained, when we are whatever we become as instruments for God's people, it is for God's people. And the married life, the family life, is the place to begin. It's the beginning of the church. It is the local church, right? So these are ways in which we can live out that reality of being in the world and not of the world. We can witness to life and make Christianity alive. The final point, of course, is in the area of human sexuality. Boom. Boom. It's a big one. Usually when we say that, there is that immediate connection between that word, sexuality, and sex, as if they are interwoven or they mean the same thing, but not necessarily. I mean, human sexuality involves the gift of the totality of the human person to God and to people around us. Now, that human sexuality could be lived out, and indeed is lived out in different ways. We have the one which is lived within the conjugal, what we call the conjugal union of man and wife, right? Husband and wife. So, and that is where the church says, oh, they have that exclusive, I don't like to use the word right, but the exclusive gift and possibility of sex, right? Because they are married, it's within the marriage. But you could also have the explication of human sexuality in the life of those who are celibate. In other words, those who are not married, who are called to a gift of totality of themselves to God and to their brothers and sisters, right? So either in the sexuality of the celibate person or the sexuality of non-celibate persons, which is located within the marriage bond and which is expressed within, again, what I said, we call their conjugality sex. Human sexuality is a big part of our life in which we couldn't but practice our faith. We couldn't but show that we are in the world but not of the world. Of course, it does not mean it is easy. It does not mean that human sexuality is often not, does not present challenges to us, but it is a tough to look into, you know. As young people, it is, we are vibrant, we are full of life. It's the more reason why we should look into it, right? This is what we are called to. So we've spoken a lot about this and of the how, encounter the culture, do not lower your bird, do not run away, and then now of the specific areas, human comradeship, vocations, and then within the human sexuality as specific areas in which we show that we are in the world but not of the world. And I'll conclude with these remarks that if we are to be successful in this, I mean, nobody can be boasting as if we're just speaking English here, as we used to say in the university, speak so much English. No, it's not about English. Our focus is Jesus. He is our source of holiness. He is the one who can make us accomplish this stuff. So if a man or a woman were to think, okay, yeah, I'm in the world, I'm not of the world, I could do all things. No, you could not do nothing. You could do everything by Christ who lives in you. Jesus is our focus. And Father Jean Nicholas Guru would say, if we wish to understand what true virtue is, we must contemplate in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. He is our great example. He was made man so that holiness might be sensible and palpable to us. We might appreciate holiness. So if we are having to want to live a virtuous life, we need to focus on him. This is why we celebrate the sacraments, come to Mass, we go to sit in the chapel, wait on him. It's not as if you do not have things to do. We know we need him. He can teach us, just like he taught the apostles. And the final conclusive remark is the fact that Jesus has also given us examples. He's given us people to show us the way. They are called saints. This example I want to propose to you, especially Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati. By the way, this book is one of the many books you have there. I hope you know. For those of you who are new, we have a library. You can borrow books, you can, right? Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati unfortunately died when he was 24, born in the year 1901. He died in 1925. He was an example of a man who was full of life. Origen will say, the human person, how does he put it now? The glory of God is the human person fully alive. This is the definition of that sort of man. He would play tennis like this guy here. He would play music like Vince there. He was full of life, yet he was witnessing. He was an active university student. He was committed to social justice, anything that has to do with justice. So much so he will carry his, campaign even to nearby countries in Germany. This is an Italian, right? Because there was something burning in him, which was beautiful, right? This book actually says he lived larger than life, so much so that it will be called the life of a party. So when he will go out with his friends to a party, he will be there, Yet he knew what he was about. He knew what he wants. He was a very dedicated man to the faith. Unfortunately, he died of poliomyelitis. It is called a poliovirus. And now he's been beatified. Hopefully, someday he'll become a saint soon. This is an example for us amidst many examples, what we call cloud of witnesses, Isidore Bakanja. These are all less than 30, all of them. They are less than 30. They are witnesses to us. Our own Katari Tekawita, our indigenous person. So this is our hope. This is what we want to become, to be able to witness to the world, to know that we are in the world. We are here, right here, man. We got to eat the pizza, but we are not of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Victor, for that lovely talk. So now we are in the discussion period of the night. The questions are on the sheets on your table, and it will also be posted on the Slido. Once again, to view the Slido and ask questions, simply go to slido.com on your phone and enter code TOT Durham. Those in person and at home are invited to reflect on these questions and discuss with those around you. This is also a great time for a short washroom break and a chance to go grab another snack and beverage. We'll be back in 10 minutes.